At 6:15 a.m. on July 25, 1944, Sergeant Curtis Cullen watched his platoon of Sherman tanks advance along a narrow rural road in Normandy. Ahead lay the hedgerows. Bocage. Living walls of compacted earth, intertwined roots, and dense vegetation up to 4 meters high, some over 1,000 years old. To Allied generals, they were just obstacles on a map. To the soldiers on the ground, they were death traps. When a Sherman tried to climb a hedgerow, the tank tilted upward, exposing its thin 19mm belly armor directly to hidden German Pak-40 anti-tank guns. The average survival time for a Sherman in these conditions was 47 seconds. The Germans had turned every field in Normandy into an armored execution chamber. Lieutenant General Omar Bradley would later describe the Bocage as the worst tank terrain in Western Europe. Each field averaged 90 by 180 meters, and every hedge was a natural fort. Between June 6 and July 24, 1944, the American 1st Armored Division lost 47 tanks just trying to cross 8 kilometers of Bocage. For every 170 meters gained, 1 Sherman was destroyed. The official response from High Command was to use explosives to blast holes in the hedges, but this required infantry to advance under heavy fire, losing an average of 15 men per breach. The Germans simply repositioned their weapons to cover the new openings. The Allied advance, which should have taken Cannon 3 days, had been paralyzed for 6 weeks. That was when Sergeant Curtis Cullen, a 26-year-old New York taxi driver, had an idea while observing wreckage on Omaha Beach. Scattered across the sand were Czech hedgehogs, star-shaped steel structures used by the Germans as beach obstacles. Cullen realized that if they cut those bars and welded them onto the front of a Sherman like teeth, they could cut through the hedges while maintaining traction on the ground. He explained his idea to Captain Jimmy Depew. Cullen and his team cut 4 90-centimeter steel spikes from a Czech hedgehog and welded them to the lower front plate of an M4 Sherman. The result looked ridiculous. Other soldiers began to mock it. Cullen put a bicycle bolt on the tank. It's going to scratch the paint on the hedges. But on July 14, in a field near St. Lo, they ran the test. The Sherman with Cullen's spikes drove straight into a 3-meter hedge. The teeth penetrated the compacted earth, the engine roared, and the tank simply cut through, creating a 3-meter wide hole while keeping its front armor facing forward. Elapsed time, 12 seconds. No exposed belly. Captain Depew sent a report to General Bradley. Despite initial skepticism, a desperate Bradley authorized wider testing. On July 18, 10 Shermans equipped with Cullen's teeth faced a fortified German area. The tanks cut through 14 hedges in 47 minutes. Not a single Sherman was lost. German reports that night expressed confusion. Enemy tanks now cross hedges without climbing. Unknown tactic. The problem was a lack of steel spikes. That was when Lieutenant Colonel John Wellborn had a crucial insight. Germany covered France with its own defenses. Let's use them against them. Teams collected all German steel obstacles, bunker beams, anti-tank gates, twisted railway tracks. Military welders worked 24 hours a day. They called the device the Rhino. General Eisenhower visited the workshops on July 20th and ordered every Sherman in France to be equipped with it before Operation Cobra on July 25th. Teams worked tirelessly. By July 24th, 60% of Shermans had been modified. Absolute secrecy was key. The Germans could not know what was coming. At 9:38 a.m. on July 25th, 1,500 B-17 bombers dropped 3,300 tons of bombs on German positions near St. Lo. At 1 p.m., 500 rhino-equipped Shermans advanced in line. The Germans opened fire, expecting the tanks to rise as they climbed the hedges, but it didn't happen. The Shermans simply cut through, emerging into open fields with their main guns already aimed. General Fritz Bayerlein of the Panzerlehr reported, "It was as if the hedgerows had ceased to exist." In a single afternoon, American armored forces advanced 6 kilometers, more than in the previous 6 weeks combined. Colonel Hans von Locke wrote in his memoirs, "On July 25th, we fought in a labyrinth we controlled." On July 26th, the labyrinth had vanished and we were exposed in open fields. It was the end. During the first week of August, rhino-equipped Shermans destroyed 214 German armored vehicles while losing only 31 of their own, a complete reversal of the previous ratio. By August 1st, Patton's forces broke through Avranches. By August 15th, Paris was surrounded. The Battle of Normandy, paralyzed for weeks, was decided in 21 days. General Bradley wrote that no tactical innovation was more decisive than the rhino teeth. A soldier with a welding torch did more than months of staff planning. There was a bitter irony, however. Sergeant Curtis Cullen never received a patent. The device was classified as military property, and Cullen received only the Legion of Merit. After the war, he returned to driving a taxi in New York, dying in 1963 largely unknown. The Wehrmacht's internal investigation concluded they assumed the Bocage was insurmountable because it was insurmountable for them, failing to consider that the enemy would simply change the rules of the terrain. The psychological impact was devastating. Interrogations of surrendering German soldiers revealed a common sentiment: if they can cross the hedges, they can cross anything. Military engineers later concluded the rhino's genius was its simplicity, just steel welded at the right angle. The reason no one thought of it before was hierarchy. High command focused on grand strategies. It took a taxi-driving sergeant to see the obvious. The story of the rhino teeth remained classified until 1947. Once released, it became a case study for bottom-up innovation. The U.S. Army Field Manual now includes a section on soldier-led tactical adaptations, citing Cullen as the primary example. Of the 500 original rhinos, only 3 survive in museums in New Orleans, London, and Normandy. They are iron reminders of how a simple idea, mocked by its contemporaries, changed the course of a campaign and shortened a war. Today, the hedges of Normandy remain ancient and dense, but near St. Lo, one can still find old breaches covered by decades of growth, marks where Cullen's Shermans cut a path to victory. In a small cemetery in Queens, New York, a simple headstone for Curtis G. Cullen mentions nothing of tanks or war, only beloved father and grandfather. But in France, his legacy remains etched in iron and welded into history, proving that sometimes, a bicycle bolt changes the world.